Good afternoon, everyone. Please, can you hear me? If you can hear me, please let me know from your end.
Yes, Sharon, loud and clear.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We are welcome. I will welcome you to the second day, which is the final day of the webinar. It has been an awesome time since yesterday. Those of us that were present yesterday can testify the nuggets, the things that we learned. One of the things that I learned personally yesterday and I took with me is the solution I'm looking for is in the market. And I don't have to rally around to look for solutions, but if only I can make adequate inquiries, I will find the solutions I'm looking for in the market. And I should let my ambition match what I'm looking for. So without further ado, I would like to question and answer sessions. Please make use of the Q&A icon. It's very important in order for us to monitor questions and not combine questions with chats. And yes, in order for us not to combine questions with chat, and yes, so I'm going to be handing over to Mr. Ayo for the presentation for day 2. It is power packed, I promise you. And we are going to be announcing our winner for the most effective participants attendee today. And drum rolls is a very precious gift. So make sure you are engaging, you ask questions, you contribute. See you all soon. Mr. Ayo, over to you, sir.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, can hear you, sir.
All right, so we've got welcome again, everyone, to today's call. I know today we may have a bit of a mixed audience as well. In other words, those that were able to join yesterday and potentially new people that will be joining us as well. So we're going to try to, revise a bit of what we learned yesterday and also make some progress today. It's very critical to also keep in mind that, like I said yesterday, typically this kind of training takes about 4 or 5 days. So what we're going to do basically is just focus on certain areas that we can cover within the time that we have. Whilst we do that, we're just going to wait a few minutes, not so long, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, for others to join as well. So whilst they join, we'll try to summarize from yesterday, or perhaps before we even do that, right? So let's just take a bit of time here. I don't know if there's any question that we want to ask from yesterday, or haven't thought about what we did yesterday. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to raise your hand or just put the question in the chat box. If you're more comfortable typing out your question, or if there's something you want us to address today, it may not even be me, maybe perhaps other marketing colleagues on the call as well may help out. I'll wait 2 minutes for that. She would help us when the hands are raised. And also, okay, I can see some hands raised. Okay, so if you have your hand raised, please, you can go ahead and ask. And also, if you want to type your question, please feel free to type.
Okay, so Madam Julia raised her hand.
All right. Thank you very much. I just wanted us to use this opportunity to recognize the presence of a very senior industry thought leader. His name is Dr. Lolu Ojo. We can see him on the call. Thank you very much, sir, and you're most welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining again today. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you. All right, please go ahead. I think I can.
So we have Alausa
Yeah,
Adeyemi.
Yes, go ahead, please. Yeah, if you unmute, you can go ahead, Mr. Lausa. Oh, I'm not sure if we can hear him.
We can't hear you, sir. Mr.
Wow.
Alausa, we can't hear you.
I don't know, maybe if he would like to,
Prefer to try.
yeah, maybe try again later if you can't hear him. Or we have, if anybody wants to go ahead whilst Mr. Lausa sorts out, if that's okay. Anyone else? Please bear with me. I'm also using this time to see if we can get more people to join, certainly because we know their interests. We respect your time, please. We just want to give a few people more time, just 2-3 minutes to join. Okay. Do we have any question in the chat area?
Not yet.
Okay, if there are no questions, so let us do something important. Let's start with the case study. All right. I know some may not have enough time to have gone through the case study, but we'll just talk a bit about it. Very top line, not take a lot of time because obviously we don't have enough time for that today. So let me search my system. I'm opening this up now. So first of all, a quick poll. Anyone here read the case study? If you've read it, can you please just indicate by raising your hand? Don't worry, we're not going to put you on the spot. Don't worry. Okay, Sean has read it. Please make us happy. Make me happy. Anybody else? It cost us a bit to buy that case study from Harvard. So we bought it from Harvard already, actually, to be able to share with you. Cost us a few dollars to share. Okay, 2 hands. 2 people have read it. 2 out of 17. Not a good number. Now, the reason why, just to be clear, the reason why we shared the case study is also because we're trying to help, marketing colleagues flip through. Okay, I can see some people glance through. Very interesting. Yeah, Cialis case. So typically, the marketing profession is one of those very few roles that is both academic and also practice at the same time. Academic in the sense that you need to know the theories, right, of marketing, and even more importantly, you need to be very comfortable with a lot of information and being able to make sense, of so much information out there. And that's the concept really about the case study. Normally, I think we sent a guide as well on when you read the case study, how do you go about it? We don't expect you to read line by line, right? It's always a case of you trying to look for as simple as what happened, what's the problem, what is the company looking to do, and what are the decisions that it has to make. That's what case studies are all about. So I would like to leave the floor open for the people that flipped through or looked through or read through. If you just want to summarize your own way, right, based on what you saw in the case study and what you think the decision was that needed to be taken by the company. Anybody, quickly? Just summarize it in your own words. Have you read the case study?
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right, great. Thanks for sharing the case study. It was very interesting. So the Cialis case study was about an organization. I don't remember the name now, ICOS or something, that partnered with Lilly to launch Cialis. They came from the background of having Viagra, which, was doing over $1 billion at that time, had a few setbacks, had some experiences with customers that they wanted to leverage on to launch their brand. And it just walked through how they set up, the the launch plan, setting up different committees, to work through research, to understand the customer or consumer insights, to, try to get, the best positioning for the drug at launch so that they could, take some share from Viagra, as well as, attract new users. That was the case study in summary.
All right. Thank you so much, Sean, for sharing that. I mean, like I said, it's not supposed to be very academic and in detail, right? It's the way you can read these case studies. Even if they are 15, 20 pages, you can actually read it in 15 minutes and get the gist of it. Anybody else wants to give it a try? Or maybe I should ask another question. If you look at the case study, what would you say about, how much is required when it comes to insight, when it comes to information and data before, developing a plan? Anybody, did you notice that? Does anybody want to share how much energy is put into that and effort?
I think a lot.
Yeah.
I think a lot, and it was very, very instructive and, helpful. And it also correlated with a lot of things that you said yesterday, because I saw them going into who even, initiates someone who has ED, who initiates the search for a cure or therapy, going to as much as, is it, self-initiated, or does the spouse initiate? Because you now need to use that to now consider who you are going to start targeting with your communication. So I saw a lot of depth and thought going into that, as well as, pain points of the customer. Are they okay with, 30 minutes of onset versus 24 hours activity, or do they want it short-term or short-lived? It was a lot that they went through to actually decipher, or glean the insight. So it was very instructive.
Yeah, marketing is not a guesswork, right? Marketing is not a guesswork. Sorry, I can see some hands are raised and you are bringing them down, but I'll still call you. Ehizele, please. Then after Ehizele, Mr. Kule as well. Then I think Mr. Lucky also raised his hand. So Ehizele.
Hi, good afternoon. So for me, I think what was really striking was how much they invested as early as 3 years before their planned launch into their market planning. They set up a whole division, global marketing and sales, and it was divided into three. They had global market planning, global market research, and they had the sales aspect. So they invested so much getting both qualitative and quantitative data. They spoke to the HCPs, they spoke to the urologists, to the GPs, spoke to the patients, spoke to the patient's spouses. I mean, the amount of investment they put into planning was amazing. And I'm really interested to see what strategy they eventually. I have some ideas around probably what perhaps I think they might have gone with, but it was really interesting seeing how much investment they put into preparing themselves to launch successfully.
Yeah, I mean, we have the results. I'm going to show you what happened. Actually, the decisions they took, the impact on the sales, and how things happened over the years. I'm going to show you that. Rightly said, right? It's a lot. And I mean, like you said, they started planning 3 years before. And that's why, like I said yesterday, every company should have one person whose job is to collate, products that are off patent 5 years earlier and would expire 5 years to come. And every company should have a portfolio plan. It may be something you will launch in 3, 4 years, right? Plan for it ahead. Start working on it. Maybe having just a meeting once a quarter, right? About your portfolio plan. The products of today, the cash cows of today may not be there again tomorrow. I mean, it's in the news already. Some researchers in Cambridge, together with either GSK or one of them, have now gotten approval for the malaria vaccine. So what's going to happen to the cash cows that are milking the malaria segment today when the vaccine comes? How are they going to cope, right? Some segments will be totally wiped away or wiped off. But the question is, do we have the arsenal? I totally understand that maybe it's in our culture. Please pardon me. This is not an insult, but it's in our culture to always maybe do things short term. So even in our politics, we are looking at the next election, right? The next 4 years. We're always thinking in short term. But really for a company that will be here, and that is the question we need to ask ourselves. Whatever company we own today or we work in today, do we want it to be there for the next 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, for the next generation to come? And if it's going to be that way, then we need to have a portfolio plan, a portfolio idea where we are thinking and asking, which product are we going to launch in the next 5 years, in the next 3 years? And we work towards it. Mr. Lucky, then Mr. Kuladesoye, please, we want your views as well. I know you raised your hand. Go ahead, Mr.
All right.
Lucky. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much. Actually, well, I managed to read one of the case studies for Cialis. It was a whole lot. It was really
That's the challenge of marketing. we have to be academic. We have to be able to read and make sense. But,
yes, I think just like last speaker said, for me, it was actually quite insightful to see a whole lot going into marketing research. And that leads me to ask, was it because it was actually a multinational that did that? Okay, so I'm trying to ask myself, was it because it's a very big company, a multinational company, why they went that whole hog, to do the that study, the research. But in all, I think it's an eye-opener to say that marketing, actually, before you can come up with a proposition, a whole lot actually went in, a whole lot we need to go in to get data before you can come up with a statement, either a positioning statement or your size of market to quantify it to say this is what you can get out of it. Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, you've asked a question that I'm going to allow the industry leaders here to also answer. I mean, Mr. Kule is a marketing and sales director. So Lucky is asking, sir, that is this a multinational thing? Sorry, Mr. Kule, are you still around? Hello, sir, Mr. Kule. I think you raised that. Is he around? I'm looking at the list now. Okay, he's around. Okay, but it's audio. I think we have to go back to our MD to ask, sir, if you can talk. Dr. Lulu.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, sir. Then after you, maybe.
Thank you so very much. Definitely, it must have to be a multinational stuff to have that kind of war chest, because I'm sure not many indigenous companies will have that kind of financial muscle to run. But notwithstanding, I think it's very important, as you have said. We need to plan very well before we just go into the market. So I think most of us are still learning that, but some of us that came from a multinational background also, it's very important. But one thing I just want to quickly add to that thing is this issue of the war chest again. You could see that Pfizer on that Cialis case, I told you I just flipped through. You could see Pfizer's reaction initially when those court cases were coming up, and how they were able to muzzle, and spend substantial amount just to counter some of the claims. So you find out that it has just got to be a multinational to have that kind of financial muscle, So just to chip in that also.
Yes. I would have loved to call names, but unfortunately, I don't have, the consent of those here that I can call, since we've not discussed with you before, you may not be comfortable. But please, anytime you want to talk, please kindly just raise your hand so that we can get your input on this. So like we said, the whole essence of this case study is to show us that a lot really goes into planning, right? I mean, some companies will have a lot of money to spend, but again, some of these things may not even be as expensive, right? Paying a visit to doctors, to patients, having conversations with them, and doing it over time. And I think that's the issue, that if you start planning long term, then you may have a bit of time to do as much as possible. But if you're rushing it, right, it means that you may need to spend a lot more to be able to get traction on this data. But if you do long-term planning and you are very clear on who your stakeholders are, like these guys, they were very clear that they needed to speak to doctors, they needed to speak to ACPs, they needed to speak with patients, and even for the patient, they needed to speak to their spouses in terms of identifying the right stakeholders. And for some of those research, they were not really outsourced per se, right, to an agency outside. Some of them were done in-house, from the marketing team or from having a research department. At least I worked with even pharma companies in Nigeria. I'm talking indigenous pharma companies that also have a research department or have a data or research team. So it may not entirely just be multinational, but obviously multinationals may have more money to spend. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's look at what happened in terms of the results and some of the decisions that Lily took in working with ICOS and what that led to. Please let me know when you see my slide. Okay, let me go to. So let's look at the case study and the outcome. Eventually, what happened? Okay, just a minute, please. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So keep in mind that you are first to market. And I think this is one of the key findings, that you are the first to market doesn't mean that you are going to own the market, right? So in around 2000, early 2000s, 2001, Cialis eventually went to the market with the clear value proposition of targeting the patients, because they needed to understand how the patients think. And unlike Viagra, that was very, doctor-centric, Cialis ensured that they listened to the consumer or the user of the product very well, and they went from the patient up to ACP. However, Viagra went top down from doctor to patients, right? So Viagra was more, erectile dysfunction, the science of erectile dysfunction. And somehow you can't blame Viagra, because even Viagra itself wasn't being developed really for erectile dysfunction. It was being developed for heart failure and all of that. And they noticed that some of the side effects was the blood flow to the penis that brought about erection, and for that reason they changed the indication. So there are two clear directions here. Cialis leveraged a lot of consumer insight, a lot of patient insight, and this is what we were saying yesterday, that even if you have a generic product that is coming late to market, the same way Cialis was coming after Viagra, perhaps if you spend more time with the patients, go to diabetes clinic, have an agreement with the hospital, right? Let them approve it. Sit down with the patients that you are targeting and ask them, what's this diabetes life all about? What's the pain they feel? What do they go through? You may hear something that, your reps can't tell you, that you can't find online, and this may shape some of your strategy, even if you can't develop a new product. So Cialis was very clear. They were more consumer-centric. They leveraged a lot of data and insights in coming to the market. So they launched in 2001. And what happened as at 2001, you can see the flow of Viagra sales. Viagra continued to grow, and Cialis caught up. It took time, right? I mean, from 2001 to 2013, that's almost 12 years. But you can see that very rapid growth that experience that was much faster than even Viagra. What it took Viagra to do in almost 18 years, they were able to do it in 12 years. And at a point, globally, their sales overtook, Viagra. In other words, even though we are in the science of drugs and, as a company and as healthcare people, scientists, we are very indication, efficacy, those nice sounding English, but Cialis didn't want to go that way. They wanted to win the end user. I know even in our detailed aids, when we develop our detailed aids, sometimes our detailed aids are too scientific, right? I mean, we know we are talking to doctors anyway. We need to exercise science, but are you also communicating with a human language, with a human face? Do you understand how the patients feel, how the doctors feel when these things don't work? And are you leveraging that as well? So Cialis priced at the same price with Viagra, okay? So there was no point of price competition. They knew that their products had the same very strong value proposition, and they priced exactly at the same price with Cialis, obviously because they have something to sell. For their promotion, they were giving 3 free tablets to the patients and the doctors, and if they were not satisfied with the current band, they were ready to, replace it and all of that. So there was a lot of sampling going on. Their point was just to reach that patient, and through the patient, drive the demand up into the value chain. But that didn't just happen alone. Viagra also responded. Viagra also brought in their loyalty program, such that every 7th prescription is free. So if a doctor prescribes it 6 times, the 7th time is free. In 2017, Lilly raised its price to 12 and later to 15. And you notice that even though they were raising price, the size was still increasing. Why? Because they were creating customer value. So the willingness to buy was there, because for the patient, it was clear. They wanted longer period. They wanted a fast onset of action and also longer duration of action. And for that, they were willing to pay a lot more through the communication. So like we said, globally, their sales grew up to about 4 billion in response to advertising and promotion. Then Viagra was very smart. They noticed that the key is with the patient. If you can get the patient, and that's why insight is key, that once you get insight, you can change your strategy. So Viagra noticed that Cialis was winning because they had the patients, not just the doctors. And in Europe, they applied for, the product went off patent. Then they decided to start applying for, an OTC status, such that you can get the product, if you walk into a pharmacy. And that strategy is still being done even today in the UK, where you have a program for Viagra patients, especially the elderly ones. You can walk into a pharmacy and just get it and talk to a pharmacist instead of prescription. So Levitra took share from Viagra and not Cialis. Why? Because Viagra was doing science. Levitra also came with science, and they started taking market share from Viagra. But Cialis was very smart. They stayed in their own blue ocean, not doing too much of the science, trying to connect with the patients and through the patients to the doctors. So really some of the reflections that we need to then have, right, is when does a first mover have advantage, right? When is that advantage? If you're a first mover, when does it become an advantage? What barriers to adoption does a first mover face, and barriers to the second to market? Anybody wants to share his or her thoughts on this? What's really even the advantage of being a first mover, really? And what are the barriers then also for second entrance? Anybody? Please feel free to drop your charts if you want to just put chat, or if you want to talk, please raise your hand. I'm sorry I can't see people that raise hands because I'm in the presentation mode. All right, I assume hands are not raised. So I will continue with the slide and rush as fast as we could for today. So this all boils down to articulating the big idea, really, about any product or about any brand. And we're going to see this as I go into the segmentation process or the brand planning process. The key really starts from segmentation, in the sense that we need to be clear about who are we really going for, right? Who is our patient? Who is our customer? And we need to be able to describe that patient from their own voice. In other words, we shouldn't just say, okay, we have metformin. Our own brand of metformin is for type 2 diabetes patients that have, HbA1c of this value of fasting blood glucose. Everybody knows that. When you make use of the same insights or information that everybody knows, your strategy becomes generic. In other words, if I'm playing in a segment and all I know about that segment is the same thing that my competition knows, there's no way I can develop a differentiated strategy, even if it is a generic that is off patent. Rather, the kind of segmentation that would work will be a segmentation that is from the voice of the customer. So we should be the company that goes to the market and listens to a diabetic patient and report it in the language of that patient to say, my patient name is Wale is a diabetic patient, age this to this. He uses his drug at this time, and part of his concerns and worries is this. What he's looking for is that. So you begin to see that you're going into the world of those patients and exactly what they want. Even if you can't bring up a new formulation, but at least your marketing communication can be very razor clear, not just to engage patients, because we can't engage patients directly, right, ethically, but at least doctors will feel like we understand the language of their patients. Once we're able to very define that segment of patients from the voice of the customer through interaction with them, then it becomes very easy of knowing who can we target. For example, if we do our voice of the customer survey, and some of the patients we have engaged, we notice that their willingness to buy, literally none of them is willing to pay more than, say, 2,000 for antidiabetics. Then we need to be very clear to say, okay, are we going to be targeting the same hospitals that these patients go to? Does it make sense? Right? We can't go there because these guys are not ready to spend money. It's like trying to take a premium product to a primary healthcare center. I know for some categories it may work, while in other categories it may not work. In fact, there are certain states, and this is what I believe, right? There are certain states that some companies have reps that they don't have any business having reps in those states. Maybe a single distributor would do, because the income levels, the lifestyles, and all of that of those patient groups in those areas is not really that fits into the profile in terms of strategy. We are not trying to deprive people of drugs, right? Drug is essential for life. And as companies, we would never advocate that we exclude patients because they can't afford. Every patient has the right to medication. But in those particular locations, maybe you should use a distributor and incentivize the distributor to have somebody that will distribute for them or something, right? But not really putting a head count there, because you've done your customer listening, you profile your customer beyond just the indication to also areas around affordability and all of that. Once that is done, honestly, when segmentation is done well, targeting becomes easy because you understand that segment in and out. And especially, this is the final point, you have insight that your competitors do not have about that segment. And it is worth it, because once you have insights that no one has, you can build strategies that no one can build. And that gives you an opportunity that no one can take. So before we go on, I like this word by this man. His name is William Deming. He's a renowned expert in business administration, theory, economics, industrial engineering, music, statistics. I mean, he was a brilliant man. And he said, in God we trust. All others must bring data. If there's any time in our history as an industry, I know I have a lot of my senior colleagues here. If there's any time in our industry where data is important, I believe it is now. Because, you know, the cost of our decisions are way more than they were, you know, a few years ago, which means that if strategy didn't work or something didn't work, maybe the cost is not as high. But right now, we all know that even the cost of a rep alone, right, the cost of having one rep, and looking at the profitability of that rep in itself is really a big deal. So we're encouraging everyone and every company here, please have a data-first culture as a company, data-first culture. It doesn't have to be, you know, like we said, 100% accurate or 100% complete, because if you don't have data at all, right, you already have 100% risk, 100. For every percentage of data you get, you de-risk yourself. So if your data is just 30% reflective, that means you de-risk yourself by 70%. And over time, you get better and better, because the hope and the vision that all of us in this group can have is that a generation will come in our industry that will look back and ask us, you know, that how were you people able to cope without having data? You know, how do you decide which hospital to go to in those days without having data? And we can tell them how we moved from here to, you know, that future. So this is the key point from yesterday, as we've seen in the case study as well, that market opportunity identification, insight, sizing, and all of that is the foundation. You can see at the bottom. Every other thing is built on it. Competitive landscape, strategy, tactics, key metrics, budgeting, finance, whatever it is. And it is the question of whoever brings any plans to us or any plan that is brought to us, we should always ask, based on what? Based on what? Now, we respect that you used to be a rep before. I guess that almost everybody here was at one time a medical rep, right? Before, or you've worked on the field. But your own opinion, your experience in the field is not enough. You probably worked in one region, right? Or one particular state. Or you've left the field how many years ago? 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You may not know what is, or be very sharp on what is going on. Well, somebody else may tell me, I go on field visits. Okay, that's very good. The day you go on this visit, the doctor didn't show up, right? Or the market was a bit different at that time. So it's very important that we leverage the group insights or the whole organization-wide insight, and I'll talk about this later, or at least we commission some little studies in investing in that. I want to run a survey. I don't know if this is okay. Let me stop this. In the chat box, right? In the chat box, I want to ask, if your organization, at least for last year, I'm talking last year, right, had a budget for data and insight, type yes. If they didn't have, type no. You know, right now we don't know your company, okay? So just type. So we have 29 here. I've gotten only one yes or no. Yeah, let's see. Please kindly type. In 2022, my company had allocated budget for data and insights. Okay, somebody said not sure. Yes. No. All right. So what do we do about this? How do we change this? I guess that's why we are here as well. Yeah, you can see. So this is a big risk. I can see a lot of no's are coming out. This is a big risk that we would encourage everyone, please, at least before you go into year 2023, try to put something on that budget plan. You know, I mean, what we consider as a best practice, if you can do like 0.05% of your total revenue or your A&P for data and research, because I mean, you want to use data to secure yourself such that whatever planning you're making, you're doing it right. And it's not only for planning, but also for checking the effect of your implementation. If you're running a campaign, for example, your reps are doing detailing, do you know what is the share of mind of doctors? How many doctors can even recall your brand in those particular hospitals they go to? How many doctors can recall the key messages? Many doctors can even remember if you launched a new product and what the product is, right? So it's very interesting that, and this is my experience, literally all of my career in both multinational and indigenous companies in Nigeria, there was no time that we did a brand message or message recall amongst doctors. I can't remember one, right, that we did. Even with all our reps, detailing, investing in all these reps, we never did it. And I think that was a major gap. Mr. Kule, go ahead. You wanted to make a comment.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just quickly, sorry to disrupt. I just want to find out what percentage of the revenue should one allocate for this data and research? What percentage are you muting?
Yeah. I mean, it's a range, right? I know that and we need to model it around your A&P, because that's the truth, right? So if your A&P is already low, I don't even see so much hope of allocation. So typically, we've seen A&Ps of between 4%. Anything below 4, I mean, it's not good enough, right? Between 4 to 8% of A&P generally of revenue. Allocating 0.1% is a safe place to be. 0.1% of your revenue. Hello, Mr. Kule. I don't know if I've answered you.
Come again. Is it 0.1% of the total revenue or of the A&P?
So if you have a range, you have 0.1% of your total revenue, or between 0.1 to 0.05 would be a good place to be if you can. But I mean, that is a data-centric company already, so it's a journey. But 0.1% to 0.05 is a safe place to be.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. Another key point from yesterday, which I will emphasize again today, is that strategies about integrated choices, right? I know sometimes we develop, 4 strategies we want to pursue. All of that is well, but really, strategy works when all of the strategy is integrated, right? Which means that the country we select to operate in should also align to the disease. The disease should align to the therapy area should align to the molecule will choose, the prices should be right, the prices should also align with the selling model should align with the kind of reps we have, and even marketing people, and also decide the channel that we use. And I made an example yesterday of a company that had a product in specialty area, but their reps were not, do not have a science background to be able to detail, in that respect. Or a company that has a premium product, but the reps are going to the wrong channels, right? All of that really kind of kills strategy. I decided to put the first point of country. The country that you deal in is very important. And I'm bringing this up because I don't know if we're aware of the Africa Free Trade Zone Act that is being circulated, which I think Nigeria is now part of. One of the things that, always sounds a bit amazing to us is that we have a number of companies in Nigeria that have been around for 50, 60, 70 years, and they don't have any operation in any other African countries, not even in Ghana, right? Which is quite surprising. And we have the likes of Aspen, and we have the likes of Shalina that literally came from Southern Africa and some part of from Asia as well, going international. We want to emphasize and hope that, Nigerian companies will consider going international, even to Ghana, to Sierra Leone. I know some of these products still flow into West Africa. We're talking about having potentially distributors in those countries, having outsourced reps in those countries and grow. And this is important so that you can de-risk yourself from the Naira exposure. The likes of Dangote and the rest, that is part of what they've done to reduce their pressure, their dependence on the Nigerian economy over time, just like the likes of Aspen. I remember one of these days I was driving in London on the motorway, and I saw Imperial Logistics worldwide. Their trailer passed by, worldwide. They say worldwide in Nigeria, right? So I think that is important, and we want to encourage companies to consider it. One of the things that PBR is looking to do, hopefully towards ending of next year, is to also have a support desk where we can support you for expansion to other countries by we having, support in other countries like Ghana, Kenya. If you want to go in there, helping you with distributor vetting, helping you with every other thing around regulatory and all of that, so that you can grow to other markets as well. All right. So yesterday we're going to talk about differentiation, right? Differentiation. And we know that it's a bit challenging finding differentiation for products that are off patent, right? Generics and all of that. But we also said that if you look at the other 4 Ps of marketing, or 5 Ps, and you eliminate the product, even for the product, you can still find areas of differentiating. Maybe you do a better pack, a different formulation, but you can still look at other areas like, the pricing could be a differentiator, even though we don't advise that you use only price as your competing tool, because you can't continue to underprice yourself. But you can look at other areas like your promotion, how are you promoting, the channels you're using. Do you want to bring in digital as well? Do you want to work with the tech ecosystem to see how you can drive your products to market, speed of delivery, speed of access by patients and all of that? All of those things can be some unique set of promise to the target consumer. So what is your differentiation? Your differentiation basically is what it is. What makes you different, right? From other brands in the market. And if you're able to consistently communicate this differentiation, it helps you to build what we call the brand equity. So brand equity is simply you having something that is different about your brand, about your message, about your reps, as well, that makes you different, and you are doing that consistently. Over time, you begin to build a certain value or respect or appreciation or regard in the market, which you call equity. And by the way, brand equity can be monetized, right? Normally, this comes up when companies are going into mergers and acquisition. I know it's not the subject of today, but it kind of could help us as marketers to know where brand equity also becomes important. So if we are selling a company or a company wants to acquire another company, there's what they call intangibles, right? Intangibles are things that you can't necessarily measure, and you can add an extra, let's say 1 billion naira or 200 million to the cost of your company to anybody that wants to acquire it because of the brand equity that you have built, which is very difficult to copy and is very difficult to kill, literally, at any time. So differentiation, well communicated consistently, helps to build brand equity, and that brand equity can be monetized, really, going forward. So when it comes to positioning, positioning can be in different ways. We have what we call the positioning variables. Can anybody tell us what is positioning? Anybody wants to try before we go into the different variables? Anyone? What is positioning? Yeah, Mr. Sean, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Positioning simply is how your customer or target audience views you.
How they view you, how they view you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sean Julius. Anybody else wants to give it a try? What is positioning? If there's any comment in the chats, I guess the team can. Okay, let's see. I can see it here.
There's no comments, but someone raises, Sean raises hand.
Yeah, I've heard you.
Okay, I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh, Francis, we can hear you now.
Francis,
Oh,
yes.
okay. So positioning means how you clearly communicate the when, the where, and the why and the how of your product.
Uh, uh, the why and the how helps to build, okay, the position in the line. Thank you, Mr. Francis. Lucky?
Okay. Well, I would say positioning is your product or company's differentiating statements.
Oh, okay. So positioning is first a statement that is then brought to life. Okay, thank you very much. That is quite good as well. So positioning is a statement, but it also has to be executed, right? So I can say, well, our price is this and that, but also I need to execute, I need to communicate it. So everyone is right. So to put it simply, positioning basically is what you ought to be or what you are in the mind of the consumer, which means that if I put myself in the mind of the consumer, how do I want to be perceived? Because we don't have a lot of time for the training, this is something that we can even go very deeply into. And I would like to make some comments about positioning for OTC brands. I think that is where often the challenge sometimes is. Please bear with us for the training, this workshop, because of time. We will not go into all the different aspects of a brand plan. We'll simply just go into the areas that we feel that are the most challenging and share some insights on that, okay? So for positioning for OTC brands, like I keep saying since yesterday, that because a lot of us have a very deep science background, and we've done a lot of our, careers managing POMs, we kind of transfer that into the consumer space, the OTC space. And for that reason, we don't get into the emotion of the consumer. We spend more time on the science of efficacy, side effects, and all of that. And that is an issue. When we come to the issue of positioning, really within the OTC space, the execution of a positioning should trigger more the emotions than it triggers the rationality. In other words, there's what we call the brand architecture. Normally when you're doing a brand planning or brand design for an OTC brand. And for the brand architecture, you have the brand claims, you have the brand personality, you have the brand, emotions and all of that. Simply what we're saying is that when we're communicating our positioning, how does it make the customer feel? Not what it just makes them know, right? Is how does it make them feel? And we need to spend a lot more time thinking about how we execute that positioning from our maybe campaigns, from TV. In fact, I noticed that pharma companies are doing so well for some reason. If you look at China's television news, almost every night, one pharma company is advertising, right? Which is a very good thing, really. Which means that, so we are spending money on the media and all of that. But as we do that, we shouldn't just spend so much on the science of our drug, right? Where the patient takes the drugs and feels better and all of that. It's also a question of, if I put myself in the shoe of the consumer, and this normally happens when you are doing your advert testing or your campaign testing, how does it make them feel? How does it make them feel? What emotion does it elicit in them? Or even if it doesn't make them feel, how do they connect with it? Is it in a language they understand? Is it in a format that they understand going forward? So that really is very key for consumer products or OTC brands when it comes to positioning. And a lot of this will rest with your media agency that you are also using. Do they know how to interpret science into emotion, into the language that the consumer understands in terms of consumer insights? So these are some of the execution or positioning right here. So we said positioning is what you want the product to be in the mind of your prospect. One of the, I'll call it one of the powerful adverts that we know in the OTC space, which was the one for Panadol in those days. The Anna Oyebanjos of this world that did those campaigns in those days said, if you don't be Panadol, you don't be the same thing, as Panadol. And we all know why. That was when, the Emzos were coming into that segment. Me and Baker was coming in, and Panadol was trying to differentiate. But I think over time, the market normalized so much that the Panadol customer knew themselves, and the other consumers knew the products that they wanted going forward. So, for example, if we look at this is a campaign. I think this is by Novo Nordisk for Prandin, which was for type 2 diabetes, reach for greater control over high HbA1c. I mean, if you look at that guy walking on the line, right? On that line, what does this interpret to in terms of meaning? Anybody? If you look at this interpretation, does anybody want to interpret this? Walking on that rope.
Adventurous people, risk takers.
Come on,
risk takers.
Don't use that. Don't use that. Give me a marketing interpretation. Look at that. Which patients? So you can see that positioning is easy to draft on paper. The challenge is always execution. Anybody? Please, everybody help me. Look at that. What's the likely customer insight or the patient insight for this?
Uncontrolled patient.
Uncontrolled patient. Control is difficult, right? How do you walk? How do you walk on that line? So this means that there are some patient groups that getting control is just difficult, right? Yeah. Because if you go to the left, you lose it. Go to the right, you lose it. And this is not about crashing, right? They're not crashing. They don't want to crash it because they don't want the risk of hypoglycemia, coming in, which comes with its own side effect as well. So what we can see is that there's clear insight that is being interpreted in the campaign and also aligns with the positioning. Look at the one on the left. What could be the consumer insight beside this? And what is the positioning there on the left, the one on the left? From the perspective of the patient. Anybody? You can type in there if you don't want to talk. Okay. Oh, thank you. I can see Oluwagbemi wrote uncontrolled patient here. High-risk patients. Obioma, true. Achieving control in high-risk patients. Absolutely. So for this one on the left, Semiseed is an old product. It's an old product. What consumer insight could be driving this, and what positioning are they looking to get? Just one pill. Convenience. Akiyemi Akite says convenience. Now a safe, simple way to prevent pregnancy. Okay. Dysmenorrhea. Emeka Diogo, thank you. Any one person, last one, either unmute or type. So what's the consumer insight here, potentially? So I'm going to describe it in the way that we are supposed to, find out safety. Joseph Ogutunde, thank you, Ogutade. So here is a patient that is saying, I'm concerned, right? I want to prevent pregnancy, and I want something that is safe. I want something that is simple to use, because maybe there are so many options out there that are complicated in terms of the way of use, and some of them have side effects, right? Convenience and compliance, yeah. Convenience in size and one single dose. Absolutely. Oh, yes, correct. That person that said one single dose, Obioma, you can see they're holding it. Easy to use. And you can see it's a woman as well that is holding. The pill are too big. Yeah. So simple to use. So you see that there's always a very clear connection between the consumer insight or the patient insight and also the positioning. The two must go together. If not, your positioning will be lost. Or you can have a positioning that goes to the wrong patient. You know that. Some positioning can target the wrong customer group that you didn't even have in mind, or the patient group we're not thinking. Then the one on the right, you see effective relief from period pain. Look at this. If you look at the pack of Panadol, there's nothing like period pain on it. Why did they go for that period pain? Look at the pack. There's nothing like period pain on the pack. Anybody, does that look interesting? Any comments, or if you want to chat or raise your hand? If you look at the pack of Panadol there, there's nothing on it. They didn't write any pain or period on it, but they are positioning for period pain. Why? Why did they do that? Potentially, anybody? Okay, red color of the pack and make one think of period. Thank you, Hazel. Yeah, true. It looks like, yeah, bloody background. Pack color suggests so. Yeah, true. Now let's talk from, we started yesterday from market opportunity sizing. Why do you think they chose period pain, and what could have led to that? When it comes to market opportunity sizing and the patient group, anybody? So the positioning here is for period pain. Why did they go for period pain? When it comes to market opportunity, right? Yesterday we said it's important that we size market opportunity. How did they arrive at period pain for this campaign? Mr. Kulebo, sir.
I think they must have done the research and found out that there are quite a number of people in this category that they can capture.
Exactly.
With their extra.
Exactly. So they're not going for everybody. They've looked at the patient group, they've done their survey and research, and they noticed that category of period pain, the number of patients that are there that also can afford Panadol within the socioeconomic class actually worth the number. Yeah, in each market that could be underserved. Thank you, easily. So we can see here that all of these are connected. So in this simple, campaigns we've seen the importance of market opportunity identification and quantification. That once you quantify your segments and you deeply understand them, it can help you with your positioning as well. And as you develop your positioning, it's also important that you execute it in a way that it resonates with your target audience. Really very interesting. So before we go, there's this survey I want us to do quickly because we don't have a lot of time. I want to see perhaps what we should prioritize as we get to an end of today's. This survey is the one on, sorry, I wrote it down. All right. Let me see. Okay, I think I can run the surveys myself since I have control. I hope I can. Tools and quizzes. Okay, hold on. Yeah, so let me run it. Okay. All right. So please, everyone, look at this survey. It says aspects of a brand marketing plan development is most challenging for you. Can you please look at it and let's answer? I know we may have run this yesterday. It's also possible some people join, but I want to use this going forward. Okay. All right. So I can see how many have voted. 5 out of 29. Oh, budgeting and finance. Okay. Risk assessment. Okay. Which one is more? Market opportunity identification and sizing. Yes, I'm happy we've covered a lot of that. All right. Okay, this is quite good. So we've covered a lot of market opportunity identification sizing yesterday. I'm glad that we did. And we've talked about that a lot too today. We've also talked about strategy development, which is coming second here, based on what I see. And we've touched a lot on that. Okay, that means we've really done the important aspects. Okay, so I will end. Let me see. I will end the survey now and share. All right, so 70% have participated, which is good. So we can see here that the major area is market opportunity identification and strategy development. Just as we go on, I want to also, because we spent time yesterday and we don't have all of the time, please, based on the explanation from yesterday and today about opportunity sizing and quantification and strategy, between the numbers of 1 to 4, 1 is, how do I put it now? My knowledge and confidence has improved. So look at the chat box. At least somewhat, right? I know we don't have enough time. So look at that. 1 is my knowledge. 4 is, no. I still need more clarification. All right, I just don't want to be talking. So if you want to score yourself as 1 or 2, 3, or 4, please, can you just reply in the chat so that we can spend more time there and discuss instead of just sharing slides, especially on the area of market opportunity quantification and strategy, those 2. Please look at the chat box. If yours is 1, you can type 1 there. If it is 2, if it is 3, or if it is 4. For market opportunity quantification and identification and also strategy. So please, kindly look at the chat box, everyone, and put a score there for yourself. Okay. I can see 3, I can see 4. Okay. Please, if you put in 4, you can unmute and ask your question, or you can put your question in the chat area or in the chat box so that we can address it. On the area of strategy and opportunity identification plus quantification. It's unfortunate we are doing this virtually. If we're in a room, it would have been a lot easier. Okay. Here. All right, so I can see, can we have like maybe 3 more votes? 1 is my knowledge and confidence has improved at least somewhat based on what we've talked about since yesterday. Or if no, I still need more clarification, please put 4, then we can answer. Just because of time, please kindly ask your questions as we go on so that at least for us at PBR, we can feel like we've made some impact. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kiyemi. Yeah, thank you. All right, so let's go on. All right, so when it comes to the marketing planning, right? I know oftentimes we say brand planning, which is good, but somehow for me, I see it as marketing plan for a brand. You know, a brand is different. If you're planning a brand, it's quite different from marketing for a brand. A brand is basically you're looking at a brand, what constitutes a brand in terms of the brand, we call it the brand collaterals, what aspect of the brand from the claims to the brand identity and all of that is a different training. But now we want to look at, you're doing your business plan for 2024. What are the different aspects that you want to consider that at least should be there, right? Number one, like we've said, is that opportunity quantification and being very clear on which products, which segment, which patients you're going for, which drug class you're going for, what is the quantity, what's the size of that segment, how many patients are there. So you have the qualitative and the quantitative. Once you have that, strategy development is easy, right? Because if I know that I'm going for patients in a certain socioeconomic class that have HbA1c within this age, this is where they live, this is how much they can spend, this is the current unmet need they have, this is what they are looking for, this is the current medication they are using, this is what I want to switch them to. Strategy is easy, right? And that is the initial work that we need to do, which is why we also share the case study for Cialis and Viagra to show that amount of work that is required. And please, don't lock it up in your mind that it costs so much to gather all of this data. It doesn't. All you need is just enough time to pen down what you want to get, things you can get in-house, things you can get with your reps, things you can get with companies like PBR, whatever out there that you can put together. So in terms of marketing planning, why is it important, right? Why is this critical? Obviously, it helps you to understand the dynamics of the market. Sometimes the market changes so fast that some companies don't know that things have changed. I'm going to ask a question, for example, and I think we should also talk about this. Anybody, what is the impact or the potential risk or dynamics of the market due to doctors' exit from Nigeria? Anybody? What should happen with our plan? What's the implication of that when it comes to doctors' migration? Anybody? In terms of the environment. You can put in the chat box or you can unmute. Or it's not affecting us. We don't think it's important. Let me see the chat area. Oh, I'm trying to host a panelist alone. Can you imagine? Sorry. We need to constantly review our customers list and roll out STP. Yeah. Thank you, Obioma. Doctor to patient ratio will reduce. Yeah. Someone said community pharmacists tend to fill in the gaps. But may I also announce to you that some community pharmacies are also, some of them have closed up. Some have also jackpot as well. How do we deal with that also? I think we should plan to reach the consumers the more. Yeah. Thank you, Oluwagbemi Ayodele. Then I also have from Sean said depends on the product. Obviously, absolutely. But again, the essence of this is that we should look at our environment. For example, I asked another question. What's the impact of tech on what's going on? We have, so let me even do an experiment here. Who can mention some of the major tech startups there that are disrupting distribution, drug distribution? Put it in the chat box. And what is the impact of those guys? And why is it important that we consider them or at least experiment, look at them? Doctors are more busy than ever. Yeah, doctors to patient ratio. So we have drug stock, we have shelf life, we have Pharma. Yeah. Remedial, health advantage. Yeah. What's the impact of those guys? Do we have them? So when you look at your brand plan for 2024, do you have a place for them on your plan? Yes or no? Anybody? Sean said no, LOL. You better go and rework it. So in your brand plan for next year, do you have a place, a slide for tech distributors or tech space? Not yet. Okay, Emeka Diogo. So it's something we should consider, please, right? I know that at a point, Jumia, is it that Jumia or Konga, also had their own consumer product as well in terms of, yeah, Konga also had. Yeah, so let's engage them. Those are ways that we can innovate, yeah, around getting our products to to the market. But basically, the idea is that the marketing planning process helps you to look at the changing customers, changing environment, technology, competition, and all of that. And obviously, as we review this, we begin to see new dynamics and also see opportunities that we can prioritize, going forward. For example, I was thinking about this really radical idea, I think, this week. And I mean, this is subject to the regulation of drug distribution in Nigeria. And I was thinking that would it make sense for some companies to even consider an arrangement where a distributor can have an account with you, order the product with you, and you supply to their own customer on their behalf, which is basically you supply only what they take or what they pay for from you. So there's no receivables or products sitting with them. The products are with you, but they have an account with you, such that every time they make a request on that account and they have credit limit, you supply to that customer on their behalf. You take off that cost from them, right? And tell them to calculate how much does it cost for them to even store that product in their warehouse or to the customer. Basically, just look at how you can disrupt that distribution chain and make it within the law, right? Within the frameworks that the PCN has put together to work for you in a way so that you are innovating either with technology and all of that. And I know that the likes of New Heights and all of that are also thinking of technology to aid their distribution process. So once we identify the opportunity, we're able to decide what are we going to focus on, what are we going to prioritize. Then from there, you can do your brand, direction, team, and all of those details. I'll go back to look at the questions. I think we have some questions. Sorry, let me see. I can't find my chat thingy again. Okay, I can see it now. Let's see. Okay. Why can't I see? Sorry, did we stop the questions area? I'm coming. Please bear with me. Okay, I can see it now. Sorry, I want to see. I think there's some questions that came up. Wow, I can't seem to find. So I don't know if you can read the questions for me. Yeah, there's some questions. Okay, I can see now. Thank you. So there's a question. I'll go back to the question area. I think Etoa asked the question. Sorry, let me look for the question. Bear with me. So this is a question from Mr. Francis. It says, marketing opportunity identification. Say, how can one acquire data or access data without necessarily having to cost a neck and an arm? Yeah, I mean, some questions, some data you can get yourself, right? Develop a form survey that your reps can go out there and administer to doctors. I mean, it's an easy way to do. Also working with your distributors or with some of your major customers out there, you can have an agreement for data share if they trust you and they're ready to do that. Some of them may not want to reveal their data with you, obviously, but you can consider that. But again, ultimately, truth be told, data is expensive anywhere in the world, right? Quality data is expensive anywhere in the world. And you can't blame, because those companies also function on data in terms of it is the data they sell that they use to keep their business going. In PBR, for example, it costs millions, right? I'm talking millions to be able to build an engine that cleans data. And we're talking in dollars here because some of these capabilities are not even in Nigeria. We have to source them from Germany, from India. So that data costs much, right? And it's an investment. Data is not a cost. It's an investment for your business to see that way going forward. I think that's the only question I see there. Yeah. So I think I've answered that. All right. So what are some of the process you want to keep in mind when looking at your brand planning process? One of the things that I've done is setting environment, right? Not every company, but it's advisable, is to have at least I would say I won't totally say just a cross-functional team, but when you are doing your plan, at a point in the brand planning, at a point, try to bring in your finance person, try to bring in regulatory, and try to bring in procurement. Those three people. So that, for finance, when it's time to ask for the money, right down the line to invest in marketing, they know how your plan was developed, especially when you are doing your market insights or your market analysis or your market sizing review meeting. Invite them to join so that at least they understand, this pharma industry, because you can't blame them. They are not industry people. I mean, they are finance. That's what their job is. But if you plead with them to attend at least one meeting where you are showing them what the pharma industry is about, what the market size is, what are the competition, how you are trying to cope, how you are trying to survive, what you are looking to do in terms of your strategy. When it comes to the process of defending your budget with them or requesting for funding, it becomes a bit easier. At least they will understand since they were part of it. Part of the things that causes resistance for us in marketing with other colleagues is because they don't even know what we are doing, right? They don't. And that's for finance. For regulatory is very key, especially if you're doing a new product launch. Please involve them early. They will tell you the timeline, and especially now that maybe fortunately or unfortunately, regulatory is a bit more complex than before. Right now, we need to wait for when the NAFDAC, registration portal will open or close and all of those things. And this could account for months, intervals and differences. Yeah, window will open and all of that. So you want to involve them so that they can tell you what's realistic. Because what you don't want to do, especially if you're a local manufacturing company, is to get your procurement to go and buy raw materials, or at least to buy some products for sampling, because you need to do your sample that you need to submit for lab testing, and they do all of those things, and the portal is still closed, right? Cash is held up, and you are to blame, literally, for that. In some places, you may also need to follow up with regulatory, maybe once in 6 months. Just write them a mail. Again, they know their job, right? So don't let them feel like you don't know what they're doing. But once in a while, ask them if all your licenses are in place. As simple as that. You'll be surprised that sometimes in some companies, license expires. Product is sitting at the port. Now that is asking for documentation, you can't clear, right? Or you can't bring in new products. And it's not your fault. But sorry, your plan can't go on. You can't meet your numbers because regulatory is not on their own task. Then last but not least is procurement. Procurement will always challenge your volumes, what you want to import and all of that. If they were part of the planning process, like we said before, they notice the market size, notice the companies that are playing, they see the opportunities and all of that. When you want to import, right, product, or at least you're requesting for what to import, it becomes a lot easier and they can also understand. So that cross-functional engagement is really very important in ensuring that your plan not only has the right details, but at the point of execution is easy. Sometimes even for the volumes you are proposing or the sales you are proposing, it may not be the MOQ. Let's say you are proposing a sales of, say, 5,000 units per quarter. And the MOQ for that product is, maybe 12,000 or 15,000 units. Then how are you going to do it, right? Are we going to keeping stock for longer than necessary? So all those details are very important in making our brand plans very realistic. Then yes, we've talked about market audits and brand audits, market quantification, opportunity quantification, work with third parties like PBR, like IQVIA, like Sanisphere, right? Talk to them, right? I've just been neutral here by mentioning everybody, right? If you want to use your BMI, whatever you can use, use it. But obviously, you want to ensure that you're combining data that helps. Identify your risk as well. Just before we go, in the chat area, please, can we type in what are the critical risks right now that every marketing plan should contain, at least as we speak today, going to 2024? What are the risks that you can think about? Can you put it in the chat area? What are the risks? At least minimum that we should keep an eye on. Oh boy, I don't know why I can't see the chat box. Well, let me have to exit and check again. Oh boy.
On the chat box, we have.
Can you see the chat box? Okay, I can see it now.
Yes, I can see the chat box, but there are no. There's no comments on it yet.
Yeah, what are the risks? Risk,
Exchange rate,
exchange rate, yeah. Inflation,
inflation,
prices change for.
prices changes for.
Okay, what else? Well, I don't know where you import from, but the war between Israel and Palestine, Pakistan, jackpot of doctors, yes, is a risk.
Jackpot of doctors.
Yeah. Any other risk? Jackpot of your reps.
Doctors, migration, yes. Government policy.
Yeah. Yeah, local manufacturing pressures. Import ban. NAFDAC delays.
Rep turnovers, yes.
Oh man, marketing. We have to deal with all of this. You know, if you're a marketer and you are still having your job and your boss is still pleased with you, you need to just clap for yourself. Right? You know.
We have
Yeah.
another question in the chat, in the question Q&A.
Okay, what's the question?
How do you handle a situation whereby what you planned is different from the reality on ground?
You
That's
change
number
the
one.
plan, man.
Then number two, what will
You change control. It's called change control.
Okay. He also asked, Mr. Lausa also asked, what will a pharma company do after killing a product or stop the importation of a product that has gained acceptance all of a sudden after exit?
Oh my, very interesting question. All right, so let me go back to the previous question. Maybe I was a bit too drastic. If you have the question that you asked about, the market has changed, right? And your plan. Sometimes you also need to check, maybe you are not implementing the plan properly, right? So what are the KPIs around your activities? So you have a plan, but you also have tactics. Around your KPIs for your tactics, are you actually meeting the KPIs? Are your reps actually meeting it? And you as a person, even your campaign, are you executing well? Before you stop or change a plan, ensure that you've checked very well that the results you're getting is not because of the plan, but maybe because of the execution, all right? But after doing that, and you notice that it's not necessarily the execution, it's the plan itself, then you want to be flexible. Around the case of you stopped a product, then the thing started moving. There are many factors around that. One is that, scarcity may have created demand, right? Scarcity can create demand again in a way where, and it happens in supply chain system, it's called signaling, where the products go out of circulation, then some patients want it, a few pharmacies don't have it, they make a request. And normally from down up, every time a customer makes a request, one customer, it multiplies to at least 3 other above channels that will be looking for it, which is normal. In other words, when a retail pharmacy goes to a wholesaler and they say they want a product, if a second retail pharmacy goes to the same wholesaler, the wholesaler will not request for 2 pharmacies, he will request for like 4, right? So it's called signaling. And that can build up to the channel up there that you as a company feel that is a demand for it. So you need to be a bit careful. It may not necessarily mean that the demand is increasing. No, it may just mean that your exit actually created a shortage and the market is simply just reacting to that. All right. So don't be too, you need to have other metrics that you are checking beyond just spore that is coming up in terms of demand. Are these all the questions? Before we move
We
on?
have one anonymous question here, but
Right.
that will take us back a little. It said, for a first mover,
Yeah.
how do we know when to begin to think of improvements, e.g. Pfizer on Viagra? When should they have started focusing on making Cialis? What should have prompted that?
No, I mean, you see, when a customer reacts or a competition reacts, it doesn't mean you should change your plan, please, right? You just need to be clear on which segments you are going for and be very decisive about that. You can't keep changing your segment and your strategy. There has to be some discipline around your execution. Obviously, you want to know if the activity is eating into your segment, and you can have a response plan, right, for that particular thing. But not totally change your strategy where you're going because of what competition is doing. It may not necessarily help. But the way you can get to know is through your brand planning, right? Your annual marketing planning, where you are doing, market audits, you're looking at the environment, what's competition doing, or even on a quarterly basis, or at least on a half-year basis, to check on, how the market is changing. I think the world is very dynamic now, and things are changing very fast. Now, sometimes you don't want to wait to the end of the year before you are doing a thorough review. So you can do a brand health and also market audit check once every 6 months to look at and ask ourselves that what we had as a plan in January, does our assumption and all of that still hold by June in terms of what's happening in the country, what's happening with all of the different stakeholders in the market. And from there, you can pick it up. And I also think one other thing that used to be very helpful in those days, I don't know how well our reps do it, is that when they send their monthly reports, it's also important that they put in, market, developments in the market and competitor activity. That way too, it can help you to pick up information. I know the challenge for some of these that a lot of those processes are data-driven, paper-driven, so we lose information. And those are areas that maybe digital transformation can help, such that if a rep is giving a report, monthly report, market observation can get to the marketing team in a collated way and in a way that can be processed. For me, it was always used to be a stress, when reps send in their monthly report. I don't have time to sit down with papers, or to be opening the reports of each rep. And those are some areas that maybe technology can help going into the future. All right, so once you know your strategy, then you build your objectives around it, or you know your objectives, then you build your strategy, tactical plan, and revenue. Obviously, your strategy has to be measurable, objective has to be measurable in terms of being smart and all of that. Now, before we go on into any plan, which is the audit process, I'm just going to spend more time, I'm sorry, on the opportunity identification and that research period and also strategy, because that's what the survey says that we want to find out more. So before we go into planning, we want to ask some very 5 strategic questions. And this is one area where our own data as a company can help us. A lot of companies are sitting on data that they're not using. And for many reasons, in some cases, we don't have somebody in the company whose job is to sit down and collate all the rep reports, all the sales data, all the meetings, everything that makes sense of all of this data. And this is what the developed world is doing perhaps a lot better that we can learn from. They brought in a lot of technology, digital things to take away paper record as much as possible, such that every data that comes in or every data in the organization is going to a place where somebody's analyzing it and making sense. For example, which of us know the most profitable rep in our company? Please, our reps can be profit and cost centers, right? I know they are humans, but they are also, each of them represent numbers on our balance sheet in a way, with all due respect. So which rep is more profitable? Which region is more profitable? Which brand is more profitable? When it comes to sales, which wholesaler, which distributor, which pharmacy has grown in the last 4 years? Which ones are declining in their sales? Do we even know? All of those details, we have the data, they are in-house, right? It doesn't cost you so much to have an intern or a data analyst, right? Who doesn't necessarily need to be a pharmacist, really, that can put that data together. And that would help really about the situational analysis in-house, right? Let's even know ourselves. Let's know what we are doing well, what we are not doing well, what we can improve upon, and we can get right, And as you do those analyses, you start seeing the key issues. You may start seeing one distributor that is just dropping up in your data, or one pharmacy, or one hospital, or one rep, When you find a rep that is doing well, can you also cascade his or her best practices? What is he or she doing well? As a marketing manager or marketing person, do you want to go and work with that rep? You know, sometimes we work with some of the reps that are not doing well. We say we want to go and work with that rep. Why is he not doing well? But why don't we work with the reps that are doing also very well, right? To say, what is this guy doing that maybe other reps can learn from going forward as well. So as we do that internal data analysis, go and bring the data from, archive, wherever we kept them, those monthly reports, whatever makes sense of it. We'll start seeing the key issues that we need to deal with, even as we look at the external data as well. Then from that, we can start asking ourselves, where could we have been really? If we were to go back to the beginning of the year, where could we have been if we did the right thing, and that could inform the vision that we set for the next year and also the next 5 years. Then from there, strategy becomes easy. So what you notice here is that if you are struggling with strategy, the reason often is that your insights, your data analysis, opportunity identification is not strong. Once you do those areas very well, the data itself will tell you the strategy. You will see it clearly that, okay, this segment is growing, or this segment is changing, or in this area, we've not really penetrated this part of the country very well, or we've not penetrated this kind of pharmacies very well, or this kind of distributors very well, because for each of those elements, you also need to have a strategy, right? What's your pricing strategy? What's your channel strategy in terms of your pharmacies and wholesalers? What's your people strategy? Your reps, what strategy do you have for them as a marketing person? How often do you want to train them? What incentives do you have for them? And all of those details. Fortunately or unfortunately, a marketing person is a company working, right? You have literally everything in your head that you have to figure out as a person. So this situational analysis really will give life to our brand plan because it makes it more quantitative. And like I said, it informs our strategy. So basically what we're saying is that you need to look at the what, why, and how, right? What really happened, the starting point, your market, the audits, what are the measurable things that have happened? And why did they happen, right? What are the trends that could have led to that number? For example, you notice that for one particular brand, the thing has just grown by like 40% from last year to date. You want to investigate it. What happened? What happened? Because if you don't know what happened, you can't reproduce it. You can't. I know in some cases, maybe product flight, the product is going to Cameroon, or is going to Ghana. And if that's the case, it's good that you know that it's going to that country. And maybe it's just the right time for you guys to consider even having a partner in that country going forward. So it's very important we know why, right? Why all the things that happen in the year, why did they happen? Why did we lose reps to competitors? Why did this product, sales increase? Why did it decline? Why did this distributor stop, stocking our product? Why did they increase stocking our product? All of those why will really, really help a lot. And once you see the why, the how becomes easy, really. And these are the things that makes it easy for you to plan, makes it easy for every person in the team to contribute to whatever you're doing. As we start getting to the end of the presentation, I want to look at the area of strategy and alignment to tactics, because if we go back to the slide where I started from before, that when you develop your strategy, everything needs to be connected. And not only that, your strategy also needs to connect to your tactics, which means that if my strategy is to increase penetration to uncovered channels, right? That's a strategy. Increase the penetration of my brand to unreached channels or uncovered channels. That is a strategy. But what is the tactics, right? The tactics could be reps to call these particular channels once every day, 4 times every day, or for us to have a wholesaler meeting or a retail pharmacy meeting in this particular location. All of those are tactics. And for those tactics, you can have the KPIs as well. So there needs to be that connection that for each of your strategy, you also want to have the specific tactics that draw or build into them. Let me stop there. I'll be talking for a while. I want to see if there's any question before we go to the next areas. Any question, clarification, comments, addition before we go on? Is there any?
Is there any questions or comments?
Oh, there are none? Okay. All right. So I will go to just one aspect. I think we have about 25 minutes left, but I want to finish like 15 minutes before the time so that we can take questions. I want to delve into an area that is very critical for us. Hold on, I'm bringing up the slide. Where are you? I'm going to round off with this. I'm coming just a minute. Bear with me. Where are you? Okay. Sorry. Conceal me. Just a minute, please. Where are you? Okay. Okay. All right. Please let me know when you see my.
I have a question, actually.
Okay, please go ahead.
How do we balance doing this level of business planning in an organization that has 20 plus brands and a small minimal marketing FTE? Please show your thoughts.
All right. So in such a case, what you do is you have to prioritize, right? There's a limit to how many brands you can focus on, and there's no company really can easily spend so much money on up to 20 brands in terms of A&P. And the whole conversation starts with your what we call situation analysis. So you look at all of the brands, and you can discuss with finance. I think finance can help with this. Ask your finance team, even though they can't give you the nitty-gritty details, but ask your finance team, of all of those 20 brands, right? Which one are the most profitable? Ask them, they'll tell you the top 5 or top 6. That which brand of all of them that if I invest time and money will deliver the most returns for our company as a business. They'll tell you because they know the numbers. That way you can prioritize those particular 5 to put in your effort, because also when your reps go to detail or able to sell or promote, they can't give equal attention to all the 5. Honestly, they can't. So that way you can really give them guidance on where they should focus on, which product should they talk about first, which product should they promote first or promote more than others. I know in those days we used to have this thing called detailing matrix, where with it you can tell your reps, first to detail this, then mention this, detail this, then mention this. And what really drives that, just that we don't have time, we could have gone into the finance of that, is that what drives that is what we call the brand contribution. Some brands contribute more to the company than others. And the way you do it is that if you have your landing price, which you call the FOB price, from your cost of goods, whatever, and you do your markup, then after your cost of marketing, direct marketing and all of that, some brands will still have a higher gross profit. Those products are the ones that are driving your brand contribution. And that's what finance will tell you, that based on the analysis, these brands have maybe 40% gross margin, 50%. This one is only 10%. And that way you can prioritize. All right. I don't know if that answers the question of the person. He or she can say yes so that we can move on.
An anonymous question.
All right, another one.
Okay, the person replied and said yes.
Okay, all right. So finally, I want to talk about just one last area. Please pardon us. For next time, I think we've learned that we'll reduce the content a bit, all right? We may not be able to delve so much into the finance part for the training today because it's a bit more detailed and practical, but I'll deal with one area. Let me ask this question. How many of us here, this will guide this last one, how many of us have launched a new brand in the last 2 years? Just raise your hand, please. At least in the last 2 years, 2 or 3 years, 2, 3. Raise your hand, please. Just a survey. New products. All right, I can see some hands. All right. Okay, so let me add to that. You've launched a product in the last 2, 3 years, and you are planning to launch potentially in the next, between now and the next 1 year. Please, we should be launching new products now, especially in areas that we don't have enough brands. Certain indication areas.
Mr. Lucky raised his hand.
Okay, okay. No, I think it's the voting. Yeah, I'm asking that.
Okay,
yeah, it's the voting. All right, no problem. So I want to talk about, how long it takes for a new product to take off. I know in Nigeria, we often say that doctors are very brand loyal and new products take time to take off. Okay, somebody said we're launching next 1 year. Okay, so I want to talk about how long it takes for a new product to take off and what you can do for a new product to take off, right? This is quite important and very interesting. Please let me know when you see my slide. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So, first of all, some key findings from marketing research. These are a bit of advanced marketing that when it comes to new products, right, on the left, there's a different dynamics on the side of the companies and on the side of the market or the customers. First of all, know it that consumers are usually very skeptical about any new products, right, naturally, which is why sometimes we have the early adopters, late adopters, and all of those, analysis that we do. And for them, it is really natural that they are not going to see the need for that product. It's just what it is. And they are satisfied with what they have, okay? So you see a doctor will tell you, I've been writing this brand for the last 25 years before you finish university or before you graduated, that shouldn't discourage you, right? It's the normal customer behavior. But on the other side, companies are also very fast and often to think that their product is innovative, which means that there's this natural bias as a company to think that we have the best product, we are very innovative, our products are the best, and all of that. So you see that on both sides, the customer is feeling, or the doctor or the patient, that what they have is good enough for them, right? Whilst on the other side, the company is also convinced that what they also have is also very good for you as a customer. And there's that, dilemma or paradox that plays out. But really, when you look at, a new product, and this is what you should keep in mind, that if you are bringing a product that is significantly different from what exists in the market, which means that product is a drug from a new class, a new category, or very, very scientific approach to selling, or very different, right? You should be prepared for a longer sales time. It's as simple as that, right? And this is evidence. If the product, the degree of change or complexity is not too much, then it is easy to sell, and also the customer behavior to change will not be much, which is why I believe that the innovation we need in healthcare, especially in pharma, in Africa and developing countries, is taking what already exists and making it better. Not necessarily new things, really, like that, right? So if we look at anti-infectives, or perhaps anti-infectives, yeah, there are a lot of beta formulations out there. Can we have anti-malaria for children, artemether lumefantrine, orange formulation, artemether lumefantrine, blackberry formulation, artemether lumefantrine, blackcurrant for children, flavored. You can see that the product change is not too much and change in the customer behavior because it's the same anti-malaria, but it's a better taste. It's going to be completely different if you are bringing an unknown category of anti-malaria, which is why I believe that the likes of, there's some other anti-malaria like dihydropyridine or whatever, peperazine. It's a bit difficult, right, for customers to change from, artemether lumefantrine and all of that. The reason why a lot of change happened between chloroquine with artemether lumefantrine is because of guideline, right? Guideline really drove that. But if you don't have a guideline driving the change, it's going to cost you a bit more. So when you're bringing a new product, keep it in mind that if that product is very innovative, is very different, and requires the doctor to have new knowledge, or requires additional diagnosis or testing, it's going to take a bit of a while, longer to sell that product. So customer adaptation is the challenge, right, for a product in terms of when a product will take off, going forward. And we can use sales pattern over the years to predict. These are a bit quite advanced. But what you should keep in mind is that a product takeoff is driven by different factors like price. The price could affect, and when we say takeoff, the meaning of product takeoff is 300% growth from the launch date, right? So if I launch a product this year, between now and when it takes us to achieve 300% growth of that product compared to year one of launch is what it calls the takeoff time, right? If your product has not reached 300% versus the growth at launch in year one, that has not taken off, right? Based on the definition of takeoff in marketing, really. So, so there are a lot of things that affect takeoff: price, country, economics, culture, and network, which is why, right? And I hope I'm sowing a seed here in our hearts that it will be great if Nigerian companies also become multinationals, which is multi-nation. You go to other African countries, you may have a better takeoff in some countries compared to what you have in Nigeria, like maybe in Cameroon, in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, in South Africa. Things may be a bit different because each country, their pricing system, the economics, the culture can affect takeoff. But before we go on, I want to ask this question: when is it okay to pull the plug on a product? In other words, how long should it take, or what should it take for us to say, okay, we are done for this product, and we are not selling it again, let it go, it's not working? How long? Anybody? You can put in the chat area. How long before you give up on the product? 2 to 3 years. How about Mr. Baby, take it easy now. Come on. Yeah, 10 years could be reasonable. I mean, if you look at the product life cycle, you have launch, you have growth, you have steady, you have decline and death, right? Exactly, depending on the product life cycle. Exactly. So it depends on the product life cycle. All right. So 3-4 years may be short. In fact, 5 years may be short. However, I agree with you in a way that you may put the plug by year 5 only if you have done all what is required for the product, and you have also kind of mimic what it may look like in terms of the product life cycle. Some products just take a bit of time, and we'll see in some of the charts after this. So look at microwave. Let's look at some products. We also show drugs. This is the microwave. It was first introduced in 1968, and the product did not take off until 1983. Can you see how long it took? How many years is that? 15 years. A microwave, as important as it is to warm your food, right, in Germany. But again, the takeoff of microwave could have been maybe faster in some other countries because, Europeans eat a lot of cold food, which are frozen food, so not necessarily hot. So maybe in Nigeria, the takeoff could have been faster compared to Germany here. But you can see the takeoff. It took 15 years, 15 years before they really took off. Look at our famous iPod. I mean, I all remember iPod then in the US. Even in the US, it took them like between 99 until about 2003. So that is about 4 years before they achieved that, 300% growth. Internet, the current internet we are all used to today. Look at how long it took. From 1990, it didn't take off until about 1999, almost 10 years before the general wide adoption of the internet. So from there, you can see that there's that risk of killing a product too early. It's a bit of a dilemma, honestly. It's not so easy, but there are a lot of factors that needs to be considered just before you take off that. Even the best of products. I mean, who should be fighting microwave, iPod, or internet, right? Even those products, as good as they are, took off, right? So a product will take off. At the end of the day, when there's a balance between the benefit and the price, the earlier you are able to communicate a benefit that is equivalent or at least more than the price, you cannot experience a takeoff. So this therefore comes down to marketing, your marketing communication, your value proposition and differentiation. If you are not communicating it well, it will take a lot longer, right, for a product to take off. And this is one of the things we can use to check if it is time for a product kill by running for example, a campaign, a survey, a research to really ask if doctors can do what we call the brand recall and share of mind as well. Do they even see the benefits? Do they understand the benefit? Do they understand what we are positioning this thing for going forward? And in places where there's a high understanding of the benefit and value, is there a correlation of the sales in that area compared to the places where it is low? I mean, a company may not do all of these things I'm saying, right, and still grow. But the challenge is that would that company still be here with us for the next 50 or 60 years? Or would that company be able to grow, right? All of these things look very tedious, right? Look very demanding. But honestly, that is what it takes, right? To build a company that will last generations and will deliver on revenue. So like I said before, takeoff involves growth of about 300%. It requires what? Enormous resources. And it marks the beginning of success. So as a company, before you launch a product or you have a product, keep in mind that it may require some investments to really get that product